Thank you. Good. Ooh, this is a great projection for those who took this public speaking class this morning. Show of hands. How many of you have ever been an advocate or a lobbyist? Everybody raise their hand. Everybody raise their hand. Lobbying is a nice term. It usually pertains to the political side of business. Advocacy is a nice term. But every one of you in your careers, in your life so far, have been a lobbyist and an advocate, starting when you were a little kid, 2, 3 years old. I don't want to eat this. I don't want to do this. I want some bigger allowance than you're giving me. Mom and Dad, I want to go here. I don't want to go there. Give me more allowance. Give me a car for high school and college. That's all lobbying. That's advocacy. All it is influencing somebody to do what you want, or influencing somebody to not do something that you don't want to do. That's how simplistic it is. My bio, if you've read it and heard about it, is I started out in the honorable profession of pharmacy, because back in my day, when I graduated from high school, our parents dictated what we went into in our careers. At the time I was graduating, everybody who went to college usually had to go into a health profession. Your choices were, and I chose these for you, for the most part: medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, optometry. There are a few outliers that fell off the curve and went and did something else. But those are the choices. Then I went to law, engineering, I think computer science, and information technology is where everybody's going these days. So I was a dutiful son. I went to college, went to the University of Pacific for 8 years, got my pharmacy degree, practiced 16 years, and then in the late 1970s, when I was president of the Sacramento Valley Pharmacy Association, I was asked by the State Pharmacists Association if I would accompany their lobbyist, who was not a pharmacist, to go to the Capitol, the state legislature, talk to legislators, talk to committee consultants, talk with legislative staff about pharmacy issues. Because I was going to be their expert witness. So I did that, and the term is called walking the halls of the Capitol, and I did that. And they also took me into the policy and the budget committees where I testified on behalf of the California Pharmacists Association. I found that to be a lot more fun than working in the pharmacy counter. And I said to myself, when I grow up, that's what I want to be. I want to be a lobbyist and a health consultant. Mind you, I was already 40 years old, set with career change. My wife was already working in the legislature. I'd already known a couple of the legislators there. And one of the members of the Assembly at a conference in Southern California asked me to come join his staff as a consultant on the Assembly Health Committee. I did go there. I wound up being chief consultant on the Medical Subcommittee, chief consultant to the Joint Senate and Assembly Medical Committee, and then I was tapped by the California Hospital Association to come work for them. When they said, "Do you want to become a lobbyist for us?" I said, "Well, that's where my career path has been directed. I'll gladly go there." I was stolen away by a law firm who wanted me to run the lobbying operation for them in Sacramento. And then I was stolen away by the term is contract lobbying firm. These are the firms, the true hired guns in professional lobbying, where, you pay, I'll play. You have a good issue, you pay me well, and I'll represent you if I like your issue and I like you. I did that for 30 years, and I branched out from healthcare, although utilizing my pharmacy background. I have represented hospitals, physicians, surgery clinics, any type of health provider you can. Ironically, I represented almost every type of healthcare provider that goes before the state legislature except pharmacists. And people ask me, well, how come you never represented pharmacists? I said, because we never paid enough money. Okay, we are cost-driven here. That's private advocacy or lobbying. During the course of my career, I noticed that the community nonprofits that came into the state legislature sometimes were well represented by their people. They had learned their skills, they learned how to testify in the committee, they learned the political process, they learned the legislative process. Other community nonprofits weren't faring as well. They were smaller, they didn't have any money, they tried to go in and do it by themselves. So I said, when I retire, what I intend to do is share my experience, share my expertise, and help communities who desperately need help. organizing their political parties and help them get more than they're currently getting. So after 27 years in lobbying, I did retire, and right now at this point in time, I represent or sit on two bodies. I sit on the board of directors of an organization called My Sister's House. It's a Asian-based community domestic violence organization. We currently have a safe house for women and children escaping violent environments. We also have a transition house where these women and children can live for 2 years, up to 2 years, while they change their lives, they get skills, develop work habits, and we also just opened in April. We're very proud of this. It's called My Sister's Cafe. It's a cafe downtown near the Capitol, and it's located in a large business community. And the building we're currently in is filled with law firms, property developers, and some trade associations that work in the Capitol. How we got there was when I first joined this organization, they had made an application to Blue Shield of California for a public grant for domestic violence organizations to explore the ability to start a business on their own, to generate some kind of revenue stream to augment and supplement their normal grant application process and looking for sponsors and looking for charitable contributions and the myriad of community fundraisers they have almost monthly. We were able to win a $110,000 grant from Blue Shield over 2 years. And after 2 years of planning an organization and finding a location, the site, we did open My Sister's Cafe. And additionally, I went with this group and taught them how to lobby the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. Last year we received a $50,000 grant from them just to add to our budget for our operating expenses. This year we were able to replicate that grant, and since we had already opened My Sister's Cafe, and they were so impressed and enthralled with the idea that we were trying to be independent and do a retail business on our own. Part of it, of course, is training, job training for the women that have left their spouses, and part of our services are legal, immigration, social services, but we also do job training. So that the county gave us an additional $50,000 to help with our operating budget. This will allow us to go into another year of operation without worrying about whether we're going to make a budget or not. Another organization that I became involved with is one here in Sacramento. How many people are here from Sacramento? Okay. So you know of Mayor Kevin Johnson, former NBA All-Star, came back to Sacramento, started a charter school organization called St. Hope Academy and Public Schools. He asked that I would sit on his board because the board he wanted someone of Asian color on the board, because the board is made up of African Americans and Caucasians. He also wanted somebody who knew politics, knew how to lobby, because the schools were going up before the Sacramento School Board, which has always been dominated by the teachers union. A number of the members were teachers of the school board, or if they weren't teachers, they were heavily influenced by the teachers union here in Sacramento. So I joined the board of St. Hope. I organized what they were doing because it was not organized. They used to go to the monthly school board meetings, bring 100, 200 people, they'd demonstrate out in front of the school, yelling and screaming, not knowing that that was detrimental to what their message was and to their ultimate goal of getting what they wanted. Charter schools have to apply for a charter between 1 and 5 years, and a facility licensing of their school plans, 1 to 5 years. They had never been able to get more than 1 year at a time because of all the, I call it rabble-rousing out in front of the school. And they were very disruptive, and they would shout and yell and scream, and they would attack the school board members. I designed a strategic plan for how to lobby the school board in Sacramento. And I selected one speaker from students, one from the faculty, one from the parents group, and one community business person who was a strong supporter or sponsor of St. Hope. Designed their message for them, decide how they should do email attacks on the board members, but not physically go there and do it in person. And then one of the students, a senior student, devised a social media program, so they attacked the school board members via Twitter and Facebook. I'm happy to say that last year, for the first time in the history of St. Hope, we got our charter renewed for the maximum 5 years. We got our facility license approved for the maximum of 5 years. So now we can devote our attention and our energies into doing other things. We don't have to go before the school board every year and beg, borrow, and steal to get our charter and our license renewed. So I'm very pleased to say that. The last thing that I'm involved in is something my wife and a colleague started years ago in the state capitol. It's called the Asian Legislative Caucus Institute. I thought my wife was going to be the time over. The young lady held the sign for 5 minutes. Yes, I'm going to. Thank you. The Institute puts on a training program every other year now. It's called the Capitol Academy. And what we do is we recruit local Asian elected officials, school board members, city council members, mayors, county board of supervisors, water district, anybody who's elected in a local area who has aspirations or any indication of a career climb up to the state assembly, the state senate, or Congress. We bring them to Sacramento, we give them, much like today, or this weekend, we give them 3 intensive days exposure to and training on how to become a state legislator. And they're exposed to the administrative branch, the legislative branch. We have what you have today, we have media training, public speaking training. We expose them to campaign managers, campaign financial managers, and then they get to shadow an existing legislator around the Capitol for half a day. That's our Capitol Academy. One of our greatest graduates, you met him yesterday, is City Councilman Evan Lowe from Campbell, who's running for State Assembly, and we think he's pretty much going to make it. He's pretty much a sure shot in November to become Assembly member. We also have currently 4 other members of the State Assembly who have gone to the Capitol Academy training program. So I'm proud to say I'm president of that organization. The training academies are fun. Hopefully in the very near future, I'm going to see some of you there who, as elected officials in the community, and we can tap you to come to Sacramento so we can help train you to run for Assembly or Senate. There are 2 minutes left. I have to make a pitch. I noticed today in your program, one on public speaking, which I attended part of, another one that's going to be done on cultural problems. One of the messages that I say, and my wife's been saying much longer than I have, that some of the cultures in the Asian community are detrimental to what we do in the public. I know that your parents, when they're encouraging you to go to college, nobody ever says go into public service. Clearly, nobody ever says go into lobbying. A lot of these types of businesses are very, very important to the community, important to us as Asians and our Asian culture. You don't get anywhere these days without politics. I'm quick to say, from the moment you're born to the moment you die, everything in between is controlled by politics. The general kind is in local government, state legislatures, and Congress, but there's politics in where you go to work. Corporate politics, state association politics, community politics. It's all around you. As Asians, you need to stand up, you need to speak out, you need to be confrontational, you need to be aggressive, but nice, and courteous, so that you can advocate and lobby our position as our position in the community. We don't stand up and speak out, nothing's going to get done. Asians are not going to get any further than we are now. We're the 2nd largest minority in California and fastest growing minority. I'm stealing part of my speech. But we need all of you as the young generation to please stand up, speak out, take some time out of your busy professional careers, advocate for your brethren and for your community and for your culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. I've spoken to a number of you who have asked me how I got into my position and a lot of questions. And first thing I want to start out is to say, you don't have to be the smartest, you don't have to be the most brilliant to succeed, and to succeed where I succeed. I called it being in the right place in the right time. And the theme of my speech is really seizing the opportunity. I fell into politics because a neighbor of mine was a lobbyist, and the majority whip in the Capitol was from Monterey Park, fastest growing Asian Pacific community in California at that time. He needed an Asian aide. My neighbor recruited me, I got the job, and it was in the 70s. And when I went into the state capitol, Asians were quite invisible at that time. Out of 5 staffers, only 4 out of 1,200 staffers were Asian American. So I came in at a time where we were invisible. Secondly, I came in at a time when diversity was starting to be known as affirmative action. And it really, at that time, became the theme of the social consciousness of that era. The Speaker of the Assembly at that time was a visionary, someone who was very close to our founder, Leo McCarthy. And he noticed that the Capitol was very white, staff was very white. He wanted to diversify the Capitol so that it reflected the California demographics. So guess what? I was the only, they were recruiting for a personnel director. I was the only woman who had personnel experience. I also happened to be Asian. But the African Americans and Latinos were strongly fighting for that position because it was such a powerful position. Second most powerful in the Assembly in terms of administration, but I got it. And that's thanks to Leo's support of my background, even though it was tough to fight the African Americans and Latinos because Asians were so weak, but I had a great supporter in Speaker McCarthy. Anyway, this raised my profile as an Asian woman in the Assembly. And you know, the more power and influence that I had, I noticed the more weak the Asians were in terms of visibility. Whenever I spoke to legislators, when they talked about equality, the needs of people of color, they only talked about blacks and browns, and they didn't talk about Asians. And I realized that because there was a lack of Asian presence in politics and there was a lack of Asian faces in the Capitol. I was so grateful that I had this opportunity to have such influence and to be in a seat of power where I had access to influence, that I wanted to do something about it. It was too embarrassing when I would go to legislators and say, how about Asians? They don't vote me. Half of them are Democrats, half of them are Republicans. They're a very weak sector of the voting population. So I wanted to do something about it, and so one of the first things I did was gather a small cadre of Asian legislative staffers and said, we're so fortunate to be in the seat of power. Why don't we develop a workshop about the legislative process, go out in the community in our own time, and talk to community groups about 1, seeking positions in the state capitol, 2, teaching them about the legislative process, and 3, recruiting candidates who now serve on boards and commissions and local elected offices to run for state office. Luckily for me, I will say when I started at the legislature, there was March Fong Yu and Senator Al Song. But I have to tell you, at that time they were struggling so much to just prove themselves because there's such few Asians at that time elected. There wasn't very much effort towards Asian empowerment until a young man by the name of Floyd Maury entered the legislature. Those of us in the Asian Legislative Staff Caucus now found an ally, who was willing to spend the energy to help the Staff Caucus get started with his empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, he's in our audience today, and that's Floyd Maury. Floyd, please stand. Unfortunately, he was only with us for a short time, so when Floyd left, there was a void of Asian legislators, so we once again were there on our own. But I found that by filling this void as Asian Legislative Staff Caucus after Floyd left, we served 2 purposes. Guess what? Elected officials were starting to notice the rapid voting power of Asian Americans. So we started becoming a source of information of what made the Asian American voters tick. So we filled a void, and we also provided a service for our community. But you know, I found that Asians, to be taken more seriously in the state political arena, have to be part of the party system. So I joined the Asian Democratic Caucus, was elected chair, and organized the first statewide Asian Democratic Leadership Caucus, where we asked gubernatorial candidates to address Asian issues for the first time. We met, and it was so successful because gubernatorial candidates told me, you know, maybe the reason why we don't appear at many Asian events because there's so many different groups. If we go to the Chinese, we gotta go to the Koreans, we gotta go to the Japanese, we gotta go to the Filipinos. So you gotta talk to about 12 or 20 sub-ethnic groups to really, you know, due attention to everybody equally. I said, we're gonna solve your problem. We're gonna put them all under one roof. So that's how that state Democratic conference became successful. We were able to get all the Asian ethnic groups to come together as Asian Pacific Americans, where gubernatorial candidates were very willing then to address our issues. The recognition of that state Democratic conference became well known. In fact, so well known, I was asked by the Democratic National Party if I would organize a national conference of Asian Democrats. And so as chair of the National Council of Asian Pacific Democrats in 1987, I helped put together the first national conference of Asian Democratic leaders from all over the country to gather together with the commitment of the Democratic National Committee and with the commitment of my own communities nationally. We would come under one roof because, believe it or not, this would be the first time in history that presidential candidates addressed Asian issues in a public forum. They would always talk about blacks, they would always talk about browns, but during that era, they very rarely talked about Asians. So it was a historical feat, and I was very proud of all the communities who came together, who helped me with that effort. As a result, I'm going real fast because of my time. As a result, I was able to be appointed to the Democratic National Committee Executive Board. I was the only Asian, non-elected Asian to serve on that committee. And what that did was, it gave me the opportunity to raise the profile of the importance of the Asian voters in presidential elections. Let me go back professionally though, because not everything was successful for me, believe me. I had my disappointments too, but professionally, I was fortunate to be in a position in the Assembly where I was second to the highest administrative position in the Assembly, and I served as Chief Deputy for 7 years under Speaker Willie Brown. And I trained 3 white males to become my bosses. So I told my husband after the 3rd turnover, I'm going to try for the CAO job. I don't know if I'm going to get it because they passed me by 3 times, but if I don't get it, I'm leaving. Because there's a certain effort when you go for a position in high ranking and they turn you down, you've lost influence. So I went to Willie Brown. Those of you from San Francisco now know how easy he is to deal with. His philosophy is you have 30 seconds to give me the problem and 30 seconds to give me the answer. I went to see him and I said to him, if I'm good enough to train 3 white males to become my boss, I don't see why I'm not good enough to become the CAO myself. And Willie has this tactic. He takes off his glasses, he stares at you to intimidate you, and if you don't flinch, he'll respond. And he said to me, what took you so long? So I go to that because I want to tell you that in my career, I had to learn the struggles. I had to learn to take risks. The risks I took when I faced Willie Brown was, if I didn't get the position, I'm going home. And so that's to encourage all of you, even when you're in a position that I was, I still had to learn how to take those risks in order to succeed. Subsequently, the Senate offered me a position to head up the Office of Asian Pacific Affairs. And even though it was a step back for me in my career, it was a job I couldn't refuse for a wonderful president of the Senate by the name of David McGurdy. And at that time, there were no Asian legislators. So I took that position on the Senate, and we were able to deal with some great issues. Actually, that was my favorite job. The title wasn't that influential. It was my favorite job. You know why? We were able to address problems like the UC admissions issue where they wanted to change the rules that was biased against Asians. Last minute, we were able to get my boss to contest that by conducting an audit of the admission rules and made the UC campus reverse that discrimination. We were able to help with the Japanese relocation reparation issue, Kennedy-Simpson immigration reform, or our Asian communities. We were able to bring relatives, continue to bring relatives to this country. I love that job. All we did was try to solve problems for the Asian community. But I was later tapped to become the Senate President Pro Tem's Chief of Staff. But by that time, we had Asian legislators elected to the legislature, and it was wonderful to see that growth in numbers. I was very proud that Governor Gray Davis then appointed me to become the first Asian to serve on the State Personnel Board. Can you believe it? The 69 years history with the Asian community being 15% of the state workforce, no Asians was ever asked to serve. I really kind of wanted to retire and go off to the sunset with my grandson, but the Asian state employees got it right. They said, Maylee, this governor is not going to appoint anybody he doesn't know or doesn't trust. You're the only one that I think we can field that has a chance for this appointment. So, threw in my name. It took me 2 years because Gray Davis wanted me to serve on PUC. He said, I'm the governor. I want you to serve on what I want you to serve on. I said, no, you don't need me on PUC. I don't even know how to turn around a light bulb with be in charge of PUC. Stood my ground, took 2 years to convince Gray Davis I'm much more needed in the State Personnel Board. I have to say, during my career path, it's been so rewarding because the California Asian Caucus now is the second largest in the legislature. We see a great increase in numbers with Asians serving on boards and commissions. You know, you have to understand, if we want to be treated equal, we've got to be at the table. We've got to be present. We've got to challenge. We have to take risks, just as I took a risk with Willie Brown. My last example about continue pursuing my passion for my Asian community, who I feel that if I'm lucky to be where I am, I need to make my community take advantage of my opportunities, of my influence, of my access, or else it doesn't mean anything. My last example is I was serving on the CalPERS Pension Board of Trustees, which oversees one of the largest pension funds in the world to the tune of $270 billion. During my first meeting of the board, I promised myself, I'm just going to be a good listener. I don't know that much about finance and investment, but I had to represent the State Personnel Board on the Board of Trustees. I mean, I knew so little about finance and investment. When they talked about hedge, I thought they were talking about a bush. So they sent me to Stanford University real quick to take a graduate course in finance and investment. And I want to comfort all of you that we are all actually, we have a meeting 4 hours every month where they really teach us about investment decisions before we're out there voting. But ironically, on that first day that I was on the board, they were making a report on how much the pension fund was investing in minority communities. Magic Johnson was big with the African American investment community. He was the lead. They were getting $1 billion. Then I heard Latinos under Henry Cisneros. They were getting another $1 billion or so. And so I waited, and I didn't hear Asian Americans. Needless to say, up went my mind. This Lou Knowles. I just said, why have I not heard anything about this pension fund investing with Asian investment managers? If anybody knows, they are among the most successful with small businesses in this country. Asian investment managers don't need to go into stereotype, best record with numbers. We have the best minds, and yet I have heard nothing about this pension fund investing with Asian American investors. The answer was, they're not organized. We don't hear from them And we don't have a resource like we do with the Latinos and the African Americans to recruit Asian investment managers. That was unacceptable. So, after that meeting, I contacted a colleague of mine that some of you may know by the name of Ginger Liu, who's a Washington icon in finance and investment in Washington, D.C. And together, we organized the National Association of Asian American Investment Managers. That was 7 years ago. Today, the National Voice of Asian American Fund Managers are the voice before all the national financial institutions here in this country, State Treasury, for example, and in the White House. So that now we have an equal standing with all the other ethnic groups who are actually helping to run our economy in this country. So, in conclusion, you know, what I'm most proud of, it's not the fancy titles, it's not the accomplishments, it's the number of people I've mentored and helped mentored in public office who are in Congress, state legislature, public service, someone you're going to hear this afternoon. What makes my heart sing is when I hear people like Evan Lowe remembering a conversation I had with him when he worked with John Vasconcellos. And what really helped bring an emotional tear was most recently when elected Asian Pacific Islander Congress member I wrote to and said, I'm so happy you won, and I so apologize that the second time around that you won, I was unable to help you. And I'm just so happy that you're there. And he wrote me a note that I will forever keep. He said, you never have to apologize about not doing enough, because we all stand on your shoulders to be where we are today. And that was Congressman Mark Takano. So, the privilege of being able to see this young talent before us, the future leaders, the honor to have Sandy Chow and the Yin family ask me to help address and help with this conference, that's really what makes a difference. That's really what counts. And I hope that all of you here who are listening will seize this moment, seize the time like I did, seize the opportunity to fill a void, and try to make the difference that Sandy Chow wants all of us to do. Thank you. The power couple here. No, but I think a couple takeaways from that. I want to just make sure that it's, as Maylee and Vaughn said, it's not about the titles, it's what you do where you're at. And we can make it all about ourselves, which a lot of people do, but they made it really about how do you empower others, how do you empower individuals, how do we empower our community. Several examples of when they saw that there was a void, they didn't just see the void, they made the change, they looked for solutions to make sure that there was no longer a void. And I mean, it's phenomenal to see that, and I'm linking in terms of retirement, that they continue to share their talents, to really lift the community and to really continue that generation and leave that legacy. So that's, just phenomenal. And once again, I want you to applaud this wonderful couple. And we're going to go to my left here. We're going to start with, who would you like to go for? Let's start with you again. Oh, okay, let's go with Albert. Albert Wang.
Thank you, Lorena, and it's hard to follow Maylee and the powerful couples and so much. But she's also a few years older than me, so I can catch up. Anyway, well, we didn't collaborate on our speeches, but actually our messages are quite similar in that I think we can all do something. My role here is to tell you that you don't have to be in Washington, D.C. and Sacramento to do something for our community. I am by profession a physician. That one said something about parents asking to be in the healthcare field. So he was a pharmacist, I'm a physician. Went through the normal course of what good Asian boy would do. Go to UC Berkeley, get your good degree, go to UC San Diego for medical school and training, and have a good job. All the medical foundation and distinguished medical practice. On the other hand, you don't have to just be a physician. You know, you have 24 hours a day to work. I work long hours, 10 hours a day. I choose to work less, 4 days a week, so I have time for other things. So I decided I need to do something else. This physician is a great job, and you have satisfied patients, you help people, you make a good income, you have respect from others, you consider sort of a leader in some way. But nevertheless, I like to help other people as well, not just my patients, my 2,000 patients. And I want to give you a personal story first, I can move on the rest later. In 1993, my son was diagnosed with autism, so that kind of put me in the bind. My wife was an electrical engineer, I went in college, and we had no knowledge of this disease, even though I'm a medical doctor. So in order to help him, we've done lots of stuff. My wife went back to school, hired experts from UCLA, but even with our resources, lots of good income. I came here at the age of 14, so my English is fine. I know the social services here, I know the system. It was still very difficult to do. So after about 3 years, we realized that immigrants who just came to this country must have a harder time. I think they don't have my resources, they don't speak English. And there's certainly not many town who knows everything about this government. So, and the stigma of disability. Wow, I'm sorry for that. Still get emotional after 20 years. Anyway, of seeing those parents who have no way. No place to go, nowhere to go. So we formed the organization after 3 years. We met a lot of parents through a special ed teacher who happened to be Chinese American. We felt that we can use our experience to help people who have no resources, actually, and who don't have a way to get out of this bind. So this is called Friends of Children with Special Needs. And over time, because there is a need, and we have talented people, there's 10 of us who formed this group. And many of them actually did not have children with disabilities. So all of you can help too. It's something that's passion, that you have a passion for. So in about 2001, opportunity presented by myself. We're growing quickly. We have no place to go. We're renting places from churches, YMCAs. But we wanted our own place. 2001, and this is why doing other community work really helps, because I had by then already been helping Citizens for Better Community and many other groups. Vision in America was Vision 2000 at the time, just started. I met a lot of people, and one of them happens to be a developer who had a piece of land he didn't want to use because he couldn't change the zoning from commercial to residential that we needed. So he offered it to us at a very cheap price. We seized the opportunity, bought it, and we built a center in 5 years, raising $2.5 million to do so. In 2001, that was thought to be impossible. We were at the time maybe 50 families who had very little resources, and many of them don't even speak good English, but we're able to do it. So put your mind to something, you can do that. And many in the audience here actually helped us, Andy and Sing and CC. So today, and over time we grew now to 800 plus families, and we just bought another center in San Jose so we can serve more people. We have 100 staff members and a $5 million budget, so it's a pretty decent sized small business. And we're able to help, I would say, probably 1,000 plus people with disabilities of all races now. But we're still about 50% Chinese American, but the other 50% are of other very diverse group. Actually, because we're mostly in Fremont, we're actually less whites than there were others. So more Asians and Hispanics and some African Americans. So what I want to say also is that you can do a lot of things. You can be a doctor. Many of you will become doctors. Many of you will become lawyers. Some of you will become business people and so on. But there's a lot you can do outside of that. And doing community work is actually good for you. Because I met all kinds of people, you know, after, it's an interesting thing I want to share with you. I had a friend in college who was a close friend, but we've been separated for a long time. Back then we didn't have emails and cell phones, so once you don't know where people live, you don't know where they are. It just so happened, this was the CC and I were debating for presidential election. I was a Democrat, he's a Republican, and we were on TV, and she saw me on TV and talked to somebody and found me. And she worked for HP in a rather high position, not the vice president, but maybe one level below that. We got to talk about stuff, and she was wondering, how come you know all these good people? All I know are people who try to stab me in the back and step over me and stuff. I said, look, this is because I do work in the community, you do work with the corporation, where everybody wants to get out of here. We are just there to help each other. So you meet a lot of good people, wonderful people, kind-hearted and supportive people. In addition, through building a CSN organization, I learned how to do business. I learned hiring, I learned H&R, I learned building, how to build the center. I was coordinating the construction. I learned government policies, development, I had to change zoning. I learned fundraising. I learned all kinds of skills you can use on your real job. Something that your boss would really appreciate. They would not understand why an engineer would know all these things. And if you do, that will really make you stand out in front of your boss. It's really very helpful. You learn negotiating skills. How do you work with volunteers who are not paid by you? How do you get them to do things that you want them to do, that you want them to see your vision? That's leadership skills you learn. I did not have an internship. I didn't have the opportunities that you guys have. So I had to learn that as life goes on. And slowly I learned that, and slowly I found that certain things are effective, other things are not. And you use those skills in everything you do in life, and you will apply that to your job. If your wish is to be the chairman of Google, and those skills are helpful. Those skills really will broaden your vision. So that's another personal benefit that you can have. And another thing I want to do concurs with what Maybe says. You must seize the moment. When the moment, the opportunity is presented to you, don't let it go. Take the risk, it's okay. You're very young, you can take a risk, you can fail 10 times and still do well. And when that comes, don't think too much about what you might lose. Think about what you might gain, what is going to help you in your life. Of course, you don't want to jump off a cliff and wish you don't die. You have to evaluate the risk versus the benefit, but nevertheless, try to seize the moment when it's there. Because once it's gone, it may not come back for 10 years, maybe longer. So in conclusion, what I really want to encourage all of you to do is, not many of you will become lobbyists, not many of you will be running for office, and not many of you will be running corporations, but everybody can do something. Find out where your passion is, and maybe just, I don't know, professional sport, whatever, do something that's useful, and always think Asians first. Because I'm really tired of this party politics and all this stuff that people talk about. I must do this, I must do that because he tells me to do. Always have your passion where you feel the life goal is. What you what people want people to say when you die. So in your eulogy, what do you want people to say? That's what you want your life to be. So try to pursue that passion, pursue it with all you have, and do what you must to achieve success in life. And that success does not have to be position, title, money, whatever. It could just be helping 3 people in your neighborhood to do something well, helping your school. to do that. And we as Asians do have that cultural thing, at least the Chinese culture tells us to mind your own business, don't stick your head out, you get the chalk off all the time. And don't waste your time on things that are not of personal benefit to you. I'm here to plead to you that don't do that. That's the problem with our culture, and it's being perceived by others as well, that our culture is not one to help others, but always within ourselves. And we need to change that perception to have respect for this country. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yanin Chai, and today I'll be talking a little bit about my immigrant experience, my experience as a student leader at San Jose State, and how I used my experiences in Sacramento now in the Executive Fellowship Program. So, like many Californians, I can share that I am an immigrant. I was born in Hong Kong, and I immigrated shortly afterwards to Texas, where I spent part of my childhood, and then moved to the California Bay Area, where I spent the rest of my childhood. And growing up, I can clearly remember helping my family out in our donor shop and helping my family prepare for the citizenship test. But like many immigrants, innocence is easily destroyed at a very young age. And I remember one day I was in 5th grade and I caught a student stereotyping the Chinese people. It's a little awkward considering I was the only Chinese American student in class. But I approached him and I responded maturely and I told him that race doesn't define anyone's potential. But he could only shriek and carol for me, "Are you going to chop suey me?" And I realized then that racism was far from gone. And despite my frustrations and my anger, I felt that I could only endure this humiliation as a means to seek collective progress. And thankfully, through civic engagement, I discovered really a lot of values and a lot of commitment from the community leadership. And so at San Jose State University, I was really inspired by the legacy of student leadership and the collaborative work that they've done with administrators and staff members to really improve the diversity, inclusion, and engagement of students. And so I made sure that when I was at school, I didn't just study, I enhanced my education with service noting and advocacy work. And it was, I think, the spring semester of my junior year, and it was a few weeks before student elections was about to happen. And I read a few articles in the school newspaper from students and also from administrators expecting a low voter turnout and citing student apathy as a reason for that. But I found that not to be the case because I felt that there were barriers to student engagement. And this is because when I went to the Associate Student Government website and I tried to look up voter information, there was no information about the candidates, no information about the elections, and this information wasn't posted until maybe a week before the elections. So the marketing and outreach was poor, and I felt that it was a really good opportunity for me to do a campaign. And so overnight, I worked with 10 of my friends who were student leaders to address this through an accessible elections campaign. And what we did was we used social media, we did a lot of flyering, a lot of classroom presentations, and over the course of a few days, we collected over 300 signatures on a petition to change policies in the Associate Students Elections Regulations Manual, which is basically a document that provides guidelines for student government to do outreach and engage students during the election process. And through my work with student government, I felt really inspired, so I decided to run for an appointment in student government, and I was appointed to the board of directors as the Director of Student Rights and Responsibilities for the following year. And during that time, worked really closely with multicultural student leaders, with administrators to address policy recommendations about higher education, about academic policies, and also sustainability and violence prevention. For example, one of the issues was kind of the increasing cases of sexual assault and sexual batter on campus, and those news and those cases made students and even faculty feel unsafe on campus because sometimes they would happen during the day and sometimes they would happen at night. So I decided to work with student leaders, since it was a passion of mine, violence prevention, to address through social media campaigns and also to work with university administrators like the police chief to talk about these problems and think about some comprehensive solutions. And our work really inspired the police chief, so he decided to create a student advisory committee so that it would create more opportunities for students to get involved and to give input about improving campus safety. We also decided to expand services to the students. We expanded the escort shuttle service system, which was a program for students if they happen to be studying or working late on campus at night and getting a ride home if they live close by, and also to really improve the communication system about whether there was cases regarding violence or even theft on campus. And similarly, I realized that you can't just push within the system. You have to be able to push the envelope outside. And so through my work with the Vagina Monologues, which is a series of interviews that Eve Ensler did of women and girls around the world about their experiences with domestic violence, with rape used as a tactic of war, with sexual assault and rape, and also with body image and sexuality, that we were able to raise awareness through community theater and also fundraise over $12,000 for local Asian Women's Shelter and also the YWCA Rape Crisis Center. And it was a way for students to get educated but also get involved about violence prevention. And after my third year of producing the show and being involved, we wanted to work with male allies because throughout the work, we realized that we weren't engaging a really critical community that should also have the opportunity to address these issues. And so during our spring break, we sacrificed our spring break and didn't take a break at all, and we worked on creating a museum exhibit to educate students about street harassment. We made a few multilingual videos from men and women's perspectives about the importance of being an active bystander. So if you see something happening, that you don't just sit there on the bus and let it happen, that you are an active bystander and you try to actively tell people that their behavior and their words are inappropriate. And so through that, we were able to engage over 2,000 students through this kind of makeshift museum exhibit. And the videos are still online if you want to look them up. And through this work, I've taken a lot of my student leadership and civic leadership experiences to state government, where I'm now an executive fellow through the Capital Fellows Program. And I'm in charge of managing 21 interns, managing a lot of policy projects, and working with stakeholders who, many of them are much older than me, many of them come from very different policy backgrounds, but just working with them and collaborating with them to create comprehensive and effective policies in state government. And while I was there, I met a few student leaders who told me about this new term called FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out. And I thought it was a really interesting term because it reminded me about the reason why I got involved. I got involved because I wanted to dispel this perception of our generation as apathetic people who are just so obsessed with ourselves that all we do is we take selfies all day and we just sit on our hands and just let things happen. And I wanted to break that stereotype as a young Asian woman to show people that it doesn't matter your age or your background, you can really leverage your multicultural identity and experience to collaborate with the multicultural community to really address issues and to take the initiative to get things done. And I think my experiences have really been heightened because I worked really closely with a lot of my peers, but also a lot of community members and community leaders to really listen to them and address their issues and needs, and also help empower and bring people along the way. I think it's really important that when you're doing this work, that you're not doing it because it's a resume fodder, that you're doing it because you really care about that community, that you really care about the issue, and that you are there to bring up other people and to share with them the knowledge that you gain through these civic leadership programs. So I'll end my talk with this quote from Cesar Chavez, that the end of all education should surely be service. And even if you're not doing this in your line of work, I hope you'll continue to work to benefit the public good. Thank you.
Once your feet hit the ground, you're expected to bring in clients.
As a startup in Silicon Valley, innovation is our DNA. It's inside our blood. What is innovation?
Very confident.
It's a way of thinking, it's a philosophy, it's a mindset. It's very closely related to leadership.
For me, it's really about finding the right fit between the product and the market.
Have a strong technology position, a strong market impact.
Innovation can be an idea, can be a product, can be a service, or can be a thinking. It can be everything, out-of-box thinking, not limited to your background, to the past. Welcome to Innovation Dialogue. I'm Diana Dane, and today we are going to talk about Cloud Festival. Today we have Carrie Davis, and she's here to share her story, which is so inspiring. What we are doing here is to summarize, bring out the point, and give a good presentation. Help people to bring out their idea to the whole world.
It's very important to be able to spot human talent and to be a good leader.
More importantly, it's how our corporate and partners perceive the value that's come out of the event.
It was all about seizing the opportunity rather than looking at the world as a set of problems.
I want to change the paradigm of angel investing being local. I want all of us to think global and to look at great opportunities in Asia or Europe, wherever it is in the world.
Come to Ding Ding TV. Let us work together to bring out your idea to share with the whole world.